Nobody walked into center court today expecting to witness the end of an era, and yet here we are, still catching our breath, because what just happened on that lawn is going to be talked about for years, maybe decades. A 21-year-old from the Philippines named Alex just did something that will follow her for the rest of her career, and honestly, follow the sport itself. I need you to understand the scale of this before we even get into the details, because context is everything here, and once you know the full story, this result hits 10 times harder. Let's rewind. The player standing across the net from Alex today was not just some seeded opponent. She was the reigning Wimbledon champion, a 6-time Grand Slam winner who had spent years being labeled a clay court specialist before she finally silenced every doubter by claiming this exact title 12 months ago. She arrived back at the All England club this year, looking sharper than ever, cruising through her opening 2 rounds while barely losing a handful of games, the kind of dominant, clinical form that makes you assume the tournament is already over for everyone else in her section of the draw. And then there was Alex. A year ago, barely anyone outside diehard tennis circles knew her name. She was grinding through qualifying rounds, chasing ranking points, trying to prove she belonged anywhere near the main stage of a Grand Slam. But something clicked this season. She won a title in Birmingham. She reached a semi-final in Berlin. She showed up at Wimbledon seeded for the very first time, an achievement that mattered far beyond her own career because no player from her country had ever reached this stage before. Just 2 days before this match, she had survived a gutting 3-set battle against the very player who had knocked out Serena Williams, clawing her way back from a set down in a performance that was equal parts talent and unfinished business, since she was avenging a painful loss from the year before, one she has openly admitted took months to get over emotionally. So when this draw paired her against the defending champion, the consensus was simple. This would be a learning experience for the young underdog and a routine step forward for the favorite. Instead, it turned into the most jaw-dropping collapse this tournament has seen in years, a slow-motion unraveling that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw coming. To really appreciate how this all fell apart, you have to understand what each woman brought into this match beyond just the scoreline potential. Alex trained for years at an academy on the island of Majorca, built around the philosophy and legacy of one of the most relentless competitors the sport has ever produced, and if you tuned in today, you could see exactly why that training mattered. She never once looked rattled, even when the match seemed to be slipping away from her. Talented juniors burn out on tour constantly, unable to handle the grind, but Alex has spent this entire season proving she is wired differently. Meanwhile, her opponent carries a reputation that few active players can match, an aura built on relentless topspin, elite court coverage, and a return game that has broken the spirit of dozens of opponents over the years. Her breakthrough on grass last summer was supposed to have put every lingering doubt to rest. These two had actually met twice before, splitting the head-to-head evenly, with the champion having the last laugh in their most recent meeting. In her pre-match comments, she had even admitted, somewhat prophetically, that Alex's game style, full of tricky changes of pace and unconventional angles, presented a real challenge. She knew this would not be easy. What she absolutely did not anticipate was watching her own game completely implode in front of a raucous, increasingly electric crowd. When both players finally stepped onto the court, you could physically feel the anticipation buzzing through the stands. Longtime Wimbledon regulars found themselves surrounded by an enormous, flag-waving contingent of supporters who had clearly traveled specifically to watch history in the making, and it became clear almost instantly that Alex had not come here simply to enjoy the experience. She wanted to win, and she wanted it badly. Winning the coin toss, she made the bold choice to return first, immediately signaling that she intended to dictate the terms of this match rather than wait around for an invitation. What followed in that opening set was some of the smartest tennis you will see against a player of this magnitude. It looked like Alex had spent weeks studying exactly how to unravel a heavy topspin baseliner on fast grass, and she executed that plan flawlessly. Her low, skidding backhand slice kept dying just above the turf, forcing her opponent into awkward, uncomfortable positions where she had to scoop the ball up from around her ankles, a nightmare scenario for anyone relying on an extreme grip designed for high, bouncing topspin shots. The framing errors started piling up almost right away. Then, just as her opponent seemed to be finding any rhythm at all, Alex would suddenly rip a flat, blistering shot down the line, catching her completely flat-footed. And then came the drop shots, deployed not as some risky gamble, but as a calculated, repeated weapon, luring the champion forward into unfamiliar territory near the net, an area where she has historically looked far less comfortable. before Alex either whipped a clean passing shot by her or simply waited for the rushed, awkward volley error that inevitably followed. You could see the tension building with every passing game, the anxious glances toward her coaching box growing more frequent, as though she was searching desperately for answers that simply were not coming. By the time Alex sealed that first set, having broken serve twice along the way, a low murmur of disbelief rippled through the entire stadium. The invincible aura that had surrounded the defending champion for years suddenly had a very visible, very real crack running straight through it. And of course, everyone in that arena, myself included, watching from home, expected the inevitable fight back. Champions of this caliber simply do not fold without resistance, and for stretch during the second set, it genuinely looked like normal order was about to be restored. She found deeper, heavier returns. Her serve picked up venom out wide. She started pinning Alex deep behind the baseline, exactly where she wanted her. An early break arrived, punctuated by one of her signature roars that has become almost a trademark celebration at this point. And just like that, the second set belonged entirely to her, aggressive, suffocating, exactly the style of tennis that has carried her to multiple Grand Slam titles throughout her career. At this stage, the story seemed to be writing itself in the most predictable way possible. The scrappy underdog had given it a valiant shot, but the bigger name had weathered the early storm and would surely close things out comfortably in the decider. Except that is not remotely what happened. This is precisely where the match transformed from a compelling near miss into something the entire sport will be dissecting for years. Before the deciding set began, Alex called for an extended break, a savvy, veteran-style move designed purely to disrupt her opponent's newfound momentum and completely reset the tempo of the match. When she returned to the court, there was a visible shift in her demeanor, an eerie, locked-in calm that suggested she had made peace with whatever was about to unfold. The opening game of that third set turned into an absolute war, stretching well past 10 minutes, as Alex relentlessly hunted down every second serve, stepping inside the baseline and taking the ball dangerously early. She manufactured breakpoint after breakpoint in that single game alone. Her opponent fought off 4 of them with genuinely superb serving under enormous pressure, composed, clutch, exactly what you would expect from a multiple-time champion in that exact moment. But on the 5th opportunity, something finally cracked, and a tight, nervous forehand sailed straight into the net. Alex had her break, and the roar that followed from the crowd was the kind that sends chills down your spine, no matter where you are watching from. From that point forward, what happened to the defending champion was almost painful to witness, in that strange way where you cannot look away even as you feel for the person going through it. The composure that had defined her entire career simply vanished. Footwork that is normally razor-sharp turned rushed and disorganized. She began chasing lines that were not really there, going for winners that had no business being attempted, and the unforced errors started stacking up at an alarming rate. Her first serve percentage cratered into the low 40s, a number that would be embarrassing for a recreational player, let alone a multiple major champion, on the sport's biggest stage. And across the net, rather than tightening up or playing conservatively the way so many underdogs instinctively do when victory suddenly feels within reach, Alex did the exact opposite. She stepped on the gas even harder. Her serves found perfect placement, jamming her opponent's body to draw weak, floating returns she could pounce on. She pulled her from corner to corner with such relentless variety that the reigning champion started resembling someone struggling through a practice drill rather than a world number 3 fighting for her tournament life. Another break followed, pushing the score to 5-1, and the silence that swallowed that stadium felt almost heavier than the roar from moments earlier, the specific kind of hush that only descends when a crowd realizes it is watching something genuinely seismic unfold in real time. Serving to stay alive in the tournament, the champion opened with a wild, erratic backhand that sailed a good 3 feet long. The very next point brought a double fault, and suddenly she found herself staring down love 30, completely lost out there. A gorgeous forehand winner briefly delayed the inevitable, a last desperate gasp of resistance, but Alex answered immediately with a stunning, full sprint forehand passing shot down the line to bring up double match point. And then came the moment that will be replayed on highlight reels for years to come. The first serve sailed long. She stepped back, wiped her face with a towel, and the entire stadium fell into a silence so complete you could have heard a pin drop from the nosebleed seats. The second serve clipped the very top of the net cord and died pathetically on her own side of the court. A double fault on match point in the 3rd round of Wimbledon as the defending champion. She sank to her knees immediately, burying her face in her hands, visibly shattered by what had just unfolded in front of the entire tennis world. On the opposite side of the net, Alex dropped her racket, collapsed onto the grass, and stared up at the sky, seemingly unable to process what she had just done. She had just taken down an absolute giant of the sport, and everyone inside that stadium understood exactly what they had witnessed. The handshake at the net told its own quiet, heartbreaking story, a brief, respectful embrace before the stunned champion hurried off court, head down, clearly desperate to escape the cameras and process the collapse in private. Alex, on the other hand, could barely hold back tears during her on-court interview, her voice cracking as she spoke about everything her family had sacrificed, the years spent training far from home, and what this single win meant not just for her personally, but for an entire nation that had never had a representative reach this deep into a Grand Slam before. It was the kind of moment that reaches far beyond the sport itself, the kind that ends up in history books rather than just highlight reels. So let's talk about what this actually means moving forward, because a result of this magnitude sends shockwaves through the entire tour. For the fallen champion, this is a genuinely painful setback, the kind that can leave a lingering psychological scar if it is not addressed properly. The uncomfortable question every rival is now asking is whether she truly has a plan B when her primary game plan gets disrupted like this. Today, the answer looked like a clear no. Her extreme grip and heavy topspin remain devastating weapons on clay, but we have now watched, in the most public setting imaginable, exactly how a tactically sharp opponent who understands how to exploit low, skidding shots on a fast surface can completely dismantle that entire game. She will recover eventually. Players of her level always find a way back, but this match has now handed the rest of the locker room a detailed blueprint, and you can be certain every single one of them was taking careful notes while watching this unfold. For Alex, the ceiling just rose dramatically. This victory validates every ounce of belief her team has invested in her over the years, and it proves, in the clearest way possible, that she possesses not just a shot-making ability, but the genuine mental steel required to beat the very best players in the world on the largest stage this sport has to offer. Carrying the weight of being the first player from her country to reach this level of tennis is an enormous burden, the kind that has crushed plenty of gifted athletes before her, yet she seems to treat that pressure less like a weight and more like fuel. Do not be surprised if this single result sparks a genuine explosion of interest in tennis back in her home country, with a new wave of young players picking up rackets, dreaming of following the exact path she just carved out in front of a global audience. And from a purely tactical standpoint, this match is a powerful reminder that raw power alone does not guarantee dominance in the modern game. Slice, disguise, variety, and genuine court intelligence just took down one of the most feared competitors of this entire era, and that should be thrilling news for anyone who appreciates the strategic side of tennis just as much as the brute power hitting. Zooming out even further, this result is an enormous jolt of energy for the entire women's tour. For a while now, the dominant narrative has centered around a perceived lack of depth, around one or two elite names hoarding every major title year after year. What Alex just accomplished on that court suggests the gap between the established stars and the rising generation is closing far faster than anyone predicted, and that these younger players are not simply showing up to participate anymore. They are arriving with real intent to dismantle the existing hierarchy piece by piece. As we wrap up this deep dive, it is genuinely still difficult to fully process everything that unfolded on that court today. We watched a reigning champion suffer one of the most spectacular collapses in recent Wimbledon memory, undone by mounting pressure, by a brilliant tactical game plan from her opponent, and ultimately by her own inability to find answers once things stopped going her way. And on the other side of that same net, we watched a fearless young challenger seize the single biggest moment of her career and transform it into something that extends far beyond the sport itself, becoming an instant symbol of possibility for an entire nation watching back home. This is exactly why we tune in for this sport in the first place, because on any given afternoon, even one involving a reigning champion at the peak of her powers, the impossible can suddenly become undeniable reality. If this breakdown got you as fired up watching it as I was living through it, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on notifications so you never miss our coverage as this tournament barrels toward its climax. I genuinely want to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Where does this rank among the greatest upsets in the history of Wimbledon? Do you honestly believe Alex can carry this momentum all the way to lifting the trophy? And what, if anything, can the fallen champion realistically change to make sure a collapse like this never happens again? Drop your predictions, your theories, and your boldest takes down below, because after everything we just witnessed today, I would not rule out a single possibility. Until next time, keep your eyes locked on the courts, because today proved once again that in this sport, absolutely anything can happen.